to conclude the interim deal before July 9 to avert reciprocal tariffs. According to the government officials, goods and digital services are likely to be part of the interim deal. India wants 5 to 7% basic custom duty cut for exports of labor-intensive products like leather, says officials. All right, that's it from my side. Stay tuned here on CNN News 18.
Network 18 decimates Times Internet with over 6 times more unique users on social media. Network 18, the undisputed leader of news networks, way ahead of the times.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to today's edition of the Breakfast Club. Today we're taking a look at an issue that affects each and every young child, the amount of sugar they're eating. And we actually have two people who pioneered the sugar board story right here in India. We'll have Revant, food farmer as he's known, someone who about 2.5 years ago first brought up the concept of sugar boards. Boards that said how much sugar is in each drink, for example. How much sugar does your Coke have? Does your Sprite have? And then the move to the CBSE, with the CBSE saying that schools across the country must install sugar boards so young kids stop consuming so much sugar.
So this is the good news of the day. We here on the Breakfast Club have been constantly telling you how sugar does you no good, and if not harm, that is. And finally now, for the first time in the country, CBSE, a primary board, has said that we need to be beware and we need to educate kids, their teachers and their parents at home to understand the downfall and the down effects of sugar completely. So that's going to be our focus on the program, along with some environment buzz that we'll get to about. But first up, let's take a look at the headlines. Eat smart, not just study smart. That's the mantra that's come in. India's first diet intervention inside school walls. School canteens now facing a sweet truth. CBSE mandates sugar boards in schools. And this is a campaign that has been running for several years now in the country. It's been a long time demand of several influencers like Food Farmer as well. Now, NCPCR has now pushed CBSE to tackle the sugar epidemic. We'll tell you how exactly that's going to work on the program.
And after that, right here on the Breakfast Club, we are celebrating International Biodiversity Day. And who you're looking at on your screens right now is Ishan Shanavas. He's become a voice for India's wild. Take a look at how he celebrates nature through his eyes. He has a book that is now capturing India's disappearing wild nature biodiversity hotspots, but he walks us through his own journey and the journey of writing the book. It's called The Light of Wilder Things. He talks to us about it and his journey with nature photography.
Also coming up on the program, we've got you the urban mobility reimagined. This one from BMW. It's the CE02 tested bike or a scooter. What exactly is it? It defies categorization altogether on an all-new kind of two-wheeler that's now out in the market by BMW. It's meant for the streets, but it's got electrifying speed as well. This futuristic ride, is it really for you or not? Well, Overdrive has tested. Sugar is no longer just a dietary concern. For several schools in our country, it's a matter of national policy. It's a huge move, and in that, the CBSE has now mandated all affiliated schools of CBSE to install now what's going to be called a sugar board. By July 15th, a directive aimed at tackling growing public health threat for children's obesity, frankly, and diabetes and lifestyle diseases that have been emerging. Now, these boards are now going to be mandatory. They are also visual boards, remember, that will expose how much sugar exists in common food like cold drinks, like packet juices, energy drinks, snacks, many of which are falsely marketed as being healthy when they really have oodles and oodles of sugar that only give you a spike and then a dump. Now, every CBSE school will now have to display the sugar content of these items in stark terms, teaspoons per serving alongside the health risks, daily limits and also alternatives.
Now, the push came after a letter by Dr. Divya Gupta of the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. She's actually going to join us today. It's a direct result of a 2-year campaign by food farmer N18L Singh. He's also joining us. His advocacy videos on sugar first went viral. He introduced this concept of a sugar board, which is essentially a board that shows each drink or each item with the amount of sugar it contains, and it triggered a nationwide conversation with more than 2 crore students and their families expected to be impacted by this huge move. We thought it's important to discuss how it will affect the children across the country. CBSE's mandate requires schools to host sugar awareness workshops. So just beyond that board, there's awareness workshops that will be interactive. They'll invite experts. There'll also be the need to submit photographic proof of compliance by the July date at which schools have been asked to comply. Morning assemblies in some schools have already begun, including assemblies where they're giving out nutritional tips to young students about how they need to make changes in their day-to-day. Others plan to hire full-time nutritionists to help students make daily changes in their lives.
But why raise the alarm, you ask? Well, because the data is worrying. Indian children consume 3 times more sugar than what the WHO actually recommends. Many get up to about 15% of their daily calories from sugar against what has been advised, which is just 5%. In India, we often think sugar is glucose and glucose is energy, which is not the case really. There is so much more scientific evidence against that now. Metabolic disorders, obesity, and even early onset of type 2 diabetes are all no longer just adult diseases. The onset is early and it's because of sugar.
So now CBSE wants to flip the script. They want to educate kids about their food habits, and this is at the time that is most crucial, when the food habits of any young child are forming. FSSAI, which first laid the groundwork for healthier school environments back in 2020, is backing this move. So other boards like ICSE, state schools, they are now being called on to do exactly what CBSE has just done. We thought today it's important to open up the discussion, bring out the heroes who've actually pioneered this movement.
And joining us now live, I'm so glad to have these 2 people who really pioneered that entire movement. Dr. Divya Gupta, she's the member for NCPCR, and as mentioned earlier, she wrote that original letter to CBSE that triggered the move. And of course, we have back with us on TBC, N18L Singh, the food farmer as we know it, the man whose campaign really sparked this national shift. So both of you, firstly, big congratulations. We see crusades happen all the time in the country, but so nice to see something moving in the right direction and actually need the needle moving where it requires to move. So big congratulations to the both of you. I want to first take the question to Dr. Divya. Dr. Divya, I saw the detailed letter which you had written to CBSE. The thing about it is that it's simple, it's easy to understand, and it's very simple to implement because, you know, culture, it eats strategy for breakfast, they say, and it's difficult to sort of incorporate these changes in a country as wide as ours, in a country as diverse as ours. But your letter says very simply that you have to organize a board. There will be a visual board as well, and there will be photographic evidence that the schools will be required to take in order to ensure that there are workshops, that means awareness, in order to ensure there is conversation, and in order to ensure that kids actually drive the message home. Am I missing something over there?
No, absolutely not. You're bang on target, and I'm so thankful to all of you to bring this wonderful subject, very important subject on the table, especially at the breakfast time. So thank you so much, and I do thank Revant for initiating this movement. Also, my Honorable Prime Minister, who actually brought this very important subject up in Mann Ki Baat. and he raised the subject of obesity. So whereas India is a very diverse country, we have two extreme ends. Whereas we are struggling with malnutrition on one end, but we are also struggling and facing very badly with obesity on the urban setup. So food habits have become like, because we have so many options available on the stands now, because earlier on we did not have as many options. When we grew up, whatever food was served on the table was supposed to be eaten. But now we have so many options. You want this, you want that, and once you have so many options, you tend to forget how much is the sugar content, because it's easy. We are a 2-minute food consumption kind of a family now. So, because that's the thing, it's fast cooking. The slow cooking process is almost out now. So fast cooking process is in, and therefore the sugar content definitely tends to rise. They have fallacious kind of information given on the packaging labels, which is also very sad. So we thought of involving CBSE schools, not only CBSE as a board, but also other educational boards, the state boards as well.
Oh,
so all state. It has been written not only to CBSE, it has been written to all states boards as well. Now the good part is that we also went a little step ahead, told them that now we're going to have a family involvement. It's not just the students. The students will definitely be made aware, because July to September is this time when probably the educational academic session is not too burdened up. That is a time when probably the children have just entered the school.
That's true.
The machinery of imparting the exams and this and that is not up. So that is a time when workshops should be held. That is a time that interactive sessions should be held. It should come from the children itself. Nobody else is going to teach them. So let them be the team leaders, let them be the group leaders, let them talk to their peer. And that's a different way of talking. They will understand each other's language. And the one probably who has spoken on the subject is definitely not going to be a part of a sugar intake. So I think that message becomes very loud and clear. That's one. Two is that we have also asked these schools to talk to the parents. How are the parents available to us, especially at the time of parents-teachers meeting? So that is a time when we have a congregation of all the parents also attending this very important session. Why should not we have a workshop or an interactive session talking to the parents? Because their involvement is also very, very important. It's not just the child, but it's a family in toto. So we're coming up with a new slogan, healthy family, healthy Bharat. So that should be like the family should participate into this kind of a movement. We're not just talking to the children.
Right, and
so of course, and it is not it's not something that the teachers also need to just do all the time. So teachers are already quite burdened, but why not family? So no family is supposed to point fingers at the teachers or the curriculum or something else. We need to have a fundamental duty of the parents as well to talk about healthy eating habits about the children. So that was another way of looking at it. And very good response coming from all over the country. We are getting all kinds of painting competitions, tagline competitions, children conducting all Nukkad Natak and workshops, and so many assembly pictures coming, videos coming, testimonials coming. It's so heartwarming to see such a positive response coming from.
I think, Dr. Divya, the crux of what you're saying really lies that you need kids to own the movement. And until that happens, we will not see actual change. And I think everything that you've said sort of points towards that. But I know Toya had a question.
But I love your point because there is data to show that in houses where the parents are obese, children are obese too.
Correct.
There's a huge correlation. But if kids lead that movement, what could that look like? Let's go to Rivan just to ask him. Rivan, congratulations. 2.5 years ago, you first came out with these food boards on social media. They went viral immediately. People loved the graphics that you made. Coca-Cola, Sprite, all these brands.
Got him into some trouble as well, but that's for another day.
But really effective graphics. So, Rivan, before we go ahead and talk about implementation, I want to ask you one or two basic questions. Question number one, why did you 2.5 years ago decide to go after sugar? So many, would say palm oil, for example, is as bad. Why did you think sugar is the first villain that needs to be tackled? And I know a lot of parents say, but kids at that age need some sugar, they need some energy, they're very active. What would you tell those parents?
I'll answer your second question first. First of all, there is no, I'm not asking anyone to stop sugar or never ever have a soft drink. Even I may have a soft drink once in a while. It's just to be aware of what you're consuming and don't over consume anything. So that's the most important thing. And the idea was that sugar board was just a starting point. Sugar board is not the first and end all of everything. It's a starting point. We may, with hopefully the collaboration with Dr. Divya Gupta, we may have salt board movement, we may have a calorie board movement, an exercise board movement, a sleep board movement. This is just a starting point, and eventually we want to make sure it's very holistic in nature, because obviously sugar is one of the many villains out there, and one of the many problems that are there which you need to solve. So we will try to have a mental health board movement and so many more things in the next 2-3 years. Sugar board was just because very simple to explain to a kid. Unfortunately, everyone ignores kids. Like, if you look at most nutritionists, they focus on people who are in the 50s and 60s, people who have diabetes and a lot of other issues. Even kids nowadays have diabetes and obesity, but most nutritionists, most doctors, most of the messages are around adults, if you look at the most of the news. So, which is why I thought, how can I create news and awareness around kids? I have to make it very simple. You cannot complicate it. You cannot use words like biochemistry and the fancy words which people often use. You need to make it very simple. And one more interesting stat I had found is that in 1990, there were 4 lakh children who were obese in India. And in 2022, there are 1.2 crore Indian kids who are obese. So it is essentially a 30 times increase in childhood obesity in approximately 30 years, which is mind-boggling. 30 times 30 years. So no one's talking about that. We need to focus on that. And it's also financially much cheaper to focus on a kid, because if you focus on a kid's health, they will probably not need to then rely on a hospital later on.
Yeah.
So it's much cheaper to focus on health education versus to focus on hospitals. So it's a very good bang for your buck, bang for your effort, which is why this was required. And I was very grateful that Dr. Divya Gupta really led this, supported this, led this, and has really made it happen. With me alone, this would never happen. So very grateful to her as well for making this happen.
Well, that is true, and Revant pretty much wears his heart on his sleeve, and this time on his chest, on his t-shirt, it says "Make India Healthy Again." So clearly he's been on a movement, and so nice to have collaborators like Dr. Gupta also sort of chime in. Dr. Gupta, I just want to come to you then for parents watching right now. It's good that Revant made it a point that we are not saying eliminate sugar, don't keep sugar in your house. We're not saying that. I think balance is key. But how much sugar is okay for the so-called growing kid, which people are till they are 18, sometimes even 30? कि ये तो बढ़ते हुए उम्र का बच्चा है, इसे खाने दो. So what is the permissible limits that I want to understand from you for sugar?
So there was a time when actually we used to say खाते पीते घर का बच्चा है, that kind of a thing कि चलता है, खाने दो, आने दो. But not anymore. So I think not only diabetes, we're actually now worried because there is an increasing data of children developing hypertension as well. So can you imagine children coming up with hypertension? Last week we had a very important consultative meeting with the Pediatrics Forum of India also. They were also a part of the entire meeting. Where we had people from Psychiatry Department, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and so many other people who could be the stakeholders regarding this subject. And it was like so heartwarming again to see that everybody was worried, everybody was so happy that we have taken this initiative and we are taking it forward. So I think we're dealing with a subject which could be very, as Revant said, it could be very futuristic. Because as the old dictum says, prevention is better than cure.
Correct.
But if we are nipping the problem in the bud, then probably we don't see a problem really rising up and coming up. So permissible sugar is something that will come with the age, as per the age involves. So for each age, there is a different kind of a level of sugar that could be permissible. No, that is again, your pediatrician is going to take a call. That is again your parents taking call, depending upon your body mass index, depending upon how exactly is your weight, what exactly is your nutritional status. So of course, that's a very broad spectrum. We should be consulting our pediatrician. We should be consulting our other peer around, and only then we are supposed to say. But again, as Revant has rightly said, that we're not saying that don't take sugar at all. Sugar is after all a storehouse of energy. So that is required. But how much?
Ma'am,
That
can
is what is-
I just interrupt for a minute, because I
Yeah.
think what we have on our screen is something very interesting. This is something that actually Revant had brought up earlier. He put out, and this is what a sugar board looks like. He said, okay, this
Yeah.
is a bottle of a cola that you have, but look at the grams of sugar in it. And those
Exactly.
packets have that grams of sugar. If you were to give that much amount of sugar to somebody's hand, they would probably not eat it. But this is disguised behind flavor, saying it's fruit, saying it's natural, saying it's great for energy. It's sort of packed up in this great packaging that people don't understand. And that is what the sugar board looks like that Revant had said. Could you give us an insight into what sugar boards in school will look like?
So we are also not only about the cold drinks, we're also coming up with the idea that all kinds of fast food also should also be displayed. So it's not just the sugar, we're also talking about a little bit of salt content as well. So that is also very important. So at the same time, not only is the sugar board, it is other forms of salt, which is high salt intake, could also lead to some kind of medical issues. And yes, we are coming up with mental health also. A lot of things are already lined up.
Okay.
I'm also at the same time taking the opportunity to share with you that we are working on the backside of the label. If you see any packaging, any packaged food product, the ingredients are written in English. They're very small. A common man does not even pay attention to that kind of an idea, that what is exactly being written there. Who would understand? How many times, how many parents would have really gone at the back and seen what is there? So that also is very, very important, correct labeling. As again, Revant. So what I feel very happy about is that Revant brought this particular idea up.
Dr.
With
Divya,
any idea,
let's just take.
which is the- can I just complete?
We
Can I just
just have
complete?
the last few minutes, so I just very quickly want to go over to Revant for one more comment from him, because we are towards the end.
I'll just complete my sentence. Just a minute. So Revant had a wonderful idea. Prime Minister took this up idea, and the government machinery is backing it up. So that's what brings the entire complete movement to take it forward.
No, but you've brought up a beautiful point that everyone needs to come together, only then can change happen. So let's ask exactly that then to Revant. Revant, back in 2020, the FSSAI had introduced its own set of guidelines for healthier school environments, where they said that, for example, food advertising, food high in sugars, food high in trans fats, shouldn't take place 50 meters near schools. But some experts said that the implementation was the problem. Here, how do we make sure the implementation takes place very effectively across schools in the country?
That's a great question. Eventually, everything comes down to implementation. The beauty of this is like how simple the implementation is. All we are asking the schools is to host a seminar on sugar and have a sugar board displayed in their schools. There's a very simple form it's created. It's a Google form where you take a photo of the sugar board and upload it on the Google form as a proof of that, okay, you held this in your school. So it's very simple in terms of implementation, and all the schools need to do is either a teacher or a principal needs to take a photo of their sugar board, upload it on the Google form, and also write how many parents or teachers were present during the seminar. So the beauty of this is is how simple it is to implement versus all the previous laws and orders and campaigns that happened, which was slightly more difficult to implement. So I'm much more bullish and confident that this will actually happen. And I will also personally, through my social media, keep pushing schools that, why is it not happening if it's not happening? And so I will try to take it up upon myself, and any school which is actually doing it, I will encourage and praise them and share it on my story, share it on my Instagram. So it's like a mini incentive for them also. Sometimes students get happy seeing their face on social media somewhere. So I will try to encourage it through my own way. I'll talk to Dr. Divya Gupta afterwards also. Is there a way we can encourage more schools, like, publish them somewhere in some official journal or something to make them feel like they are getting recognized for doing some good work. So we'll try to do something which helps them. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll just try to encourage them in these innovative ways.
Right. Right. So the problem was identified. Now a solution has been found as well. Now we have to wait for July to see how it's actually implemented and see how adoption takes place, and perhaps
We're not going to
revisit
wait.
this
We're
story.
going to every week push. Every week we're going to push.
We're pushing it every time.
Yeah.
Great.
Both the
I was just
champions are
going to say that maybe we should do a round 2 and then see and properly use this platform as well to sort of highlight some of the heroes and question those who haven't. So this will be great. I also think the bottom line of this discussion is that nutritional education is key, and that needs to be incorporated as well. Sugar is one villain that we need to tackle, but nutritional
And
health
one line.
overall awareness is key. Yeah, very quickly, Revant.
Yeah. Most of Indians are educated, but we are health illiterate. We're not
Yeah.
health literate. So
Yeah.
we need to make 140 crore Indians health literate. One line, that's the summary.
Yeah, that is right. And starting with kids is a great way to do that. To both Revant and Dr. Gupta, thank you so much and congratulations once
you.
again. We'll come back and revisit the story as and when
Thank
it
you.
goes.
What a great conversation early at breakfast time, though.
Yeah.
You know, this is the
Lovely.
time when you
So everybody
impact.
mixing sugar in the tea
Yeah.
right now. Watch up.
Yeah, and this is the time you impact the rest of your day. So look out for what you're eating. We're going to head into a quick break. On the other side, we are celebrating International Biodiversity Day today. And what does that mean? We have with us on the show Ishan Shanavasi, someone who is a voice for India's wild. What we're going to be taking a look at in just a second is nature through a teenager's eyes. He was a teenager when he wrote this book. His book captures India's disappearing wild. It's called The Light of Wilder Things. He's going to join us and talk to us about his fight for biodiversity.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for your time.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for having me, Anand.
So, how do we deal with this? Now, this is the input coming through. The Kartarpur Sahib corridor is a matter of religious pilgrimage. We can't go back and alter history, because had that line been just 1.5 kilometers on the other side, we wouldn't have had this problem also. But now we are faced with this issue. And in the recent spurt of the number of people who are now being unearthed as part of the spy ring cultivated by the ISI, this becomes concerning.
Anand, yeah, it's a very good point, but I would like to add that this corridor was opened on 9th of November 2019. But the spy rings were working before that also.
Ji.
Secondly, you will find that since having knowledge of law and order, intelligence, and having worked in various fields of the state police as an IPS officer,
Ji.
I know that such places are for mutual exchange of intelligence. It is not that it is always a negative point for us. Our intelligence agencies, whether it is RAW, IB, state counterintelligence agencies, it's like a place. For example, if you look at Red Cross, or you will find that all these places are good breeding grounds, but it can be beneficial both ways. So I don't want to go into those details.
Right.
But just imagine that since November 2019, around 4,14,435 people have visited this Gurdwara Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib. Out of that, maybe 10, 20, you will find that we can say that, not that I only know about 2 people which have been identified, including Jyoti Mehrotra and one from Haryana and maybe one from Punjab. The percentage of such people is very low. I also want to add one more thing,
Ji.
that Jyoti Mehrotra only once went to Kartarpur Sahib, but twice she went to Pakistan via Atari border.
Yeah.
So this exchange of visitors is okay, But at the same time, I don't want to deny that whether it is on this side or that side of the border, we need to be very alert on these issues. And now in present day world, when we have like social media platforms, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, it is very easy for our intelligence agencies also to monitor as to what the other person is doing. And I feel that it is like, for example, if there is 40,000 people sitting in one stadium,
right,
and they all have mobile phones, for intelligence agencies of ours, as we are very technically advanced, no doubt about that,
right,
and I have seen how we work, it's not difficult for us to identify who are the black sheeps or who are working for the foreign this thing. Now these have been identified. I think they have been located, pinpointed, because I feel that during Operation Sindoor, our intelligence agencies, they worked proactively and they could identify these. So therefore, what we need to do is that instead of causing obstructions, because I know there are elements on both sides of the nation who don't want to eliminate the political credit which somebody can drive on other side or this side. Because it's a very important religious place where Guru Nanak Sahib stayed for 18 years of the last. He came there in 1429 and he left this world in 1539, 1521. So 18 years he stayed there and he spread the message of Kirti Karna, Naam Japna and Van Shakna. And at the time of his passing away, both the sides, Muslims and Sikhs, both wanted that he is their teacher or God or Guru. So they both wanted to cremate as per their rites. So you imagine that is the place where there are about 15 feet apart, two burial places, one by Sikh rites and other by Muslim rites. And they are very near to each other. But at the same time, coming back to the internal security issues and intelligence agents or spies, which can be incorporated, it is typically a both-way exchange. But at the same time, what we need to do is we need to activate our proactively be active so that we identify. Because Anand, I would like to add one more thing before your other panelists come. That out of 5,936 people who applied, 4,14,435 is visited. And now it is only intelligence agency can say how many of them were indoctrinated as the spies of the foreign agency.
Got it. No, I get your point. You're making a point. But thing is, sir, in their case, with the enemy is concerned, even if they get 1, 2 or 5 of them, that is enough to cause a certain level of damage, which is there. But the other thing is as to who is managing the Kartarpur corridor Sahib or Kartarpur Sahib corridor and Kartarpur Sahib on the other side. So if they really respect the Sikhs and the Sikh holy sites, then it should be the Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee that should be doing it.
Anand, I totally agree.
May I please bring in Ramnik Man Gurinder Singh ji? He's been waiting for a bit. Let me ask him.
Please.
Thank you. So Ramnik Man, your thoughts?
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club. Let's take you now to stories that are taking place in India and across the world. First, after persistent summer heat and high humidity over the past few days, a massive dust storm signaling a sudden change in the Delhi NCR region on Wednesday. The Met issued a red alert in several districts with predictions of light to moderate rain, accompanied with thunderstorm, dust storms and gusty winds. Airport authorities declared an aircraft on-ground situation affecting thousands of flyers due to inclement weather. It meant that flights cannot be used due to technical difficulties.
And talking about flights, an Indigo flight en route Delhi to Srinagar experienced severe weather turbulence mid-air on Tuesday evening, prompting the pilot to declare an emergency with air traffic control. Video of a terrifying mid-air accident, in fact it was an incident, one can call it that had gone viral on social media, showing passengers screaming, crying, praying as the aircraft shook violently.
तो फ्लाइट स्मूथ ही जा रही थी, तो मुझे लगता है 20 या 30 मिनट होंगे श्रीनगर आने को, तो कॉकपिट से अनाउंसमेंट आया कि रफ पाथ है, तो आपने फास्टन योर सीट बेल्ट्स। तो हम सब लोगों ने सीट बेल्ट्स फास्टन किए। तो इसी विदिन 2 मिनट्स और 3 मिनट्स में इतना टर्बुलेंस हुआ कि हमें लगा कि हमारी आखिरी फ्लाइट थी। सब लोग जो थे सभी डर रहे थे, सबको भी लगा था कि अब ये क्रैश ही हो जाएगा। इतना ज़्यादा ट्रॉमेटिक एक्सपीरियंस हुआ, ऐसा मैंने आज तक कभी नहीं देखा कि ऐसी टर्बुलेंस अपनी लाइफ में, जैसे मैंने इतनी फ्लाइट्स ली है।
Okay, we take you now to Copenhagen, where police are training their dogs at the city's National Aquarium as part of an effort to acclimatize them to various environments with distinct smells and sounds. The dogs, which are used in urban environments, are introduced to a wide range of surroundings to help them perform their tasks without any distractions. Training begins when the dogs are between 8 and 9 weeks old, exposing them gradually to diverse different kinds of environments.
Good news for all Potter fans out there. Universal has added to its Harry Potter offering with a third Wizarding World at its new theme park, the Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida. The Ministry of Magic now recreates 1920s Paris as seen in the Warner Brothers Fantastic Beasts series as the British Ministry of Magic set in 1990s London. The main attraction? It's Harry Potter and the battle at the Ministry. It takes rights to trial with the witches and also culminates with a battle against the spectral Death Eaters.
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, being able to see this whole project from the beginning to end and all phases of design and construction, to see it open and like guests experiencing it, it is so meaningful. I love when guests tell me that they feel like they were in the movies, and the technology helps bring that to life in such a new way. But also we have scenes that we've done things that we've never done before. There's so many layers now of technology, and so being able to work with so many different specialties to bring it together was so incredible.
All right, moving from that now to the US, where the Trump administration's mixed messages on school meals with funding cuts alongside calls for healthier options seems to be creating a challenge for those that are actually involved at the forefront of school nutrition programs. This is a full report. Take a look.
In a school cafeteria in Tucson, Arizona, students weigh up their choices for lunch. Mandarin oranges, cherry tomatoes, and butter lettuce are on offer. It's a far cry from what parents remember of mystery meat school lunches from over 20 years ago.
Whether it's looking at cancer or heart disease or diabetes, all of these things, the research has been done to show that diets high in fruits and vegetables, right, have a positive influence on lowering as you progress through your life.
Lindsay Aguilar oversees the nutrition program in Tucson District Schools. These fruit and vegetables have been supplied with the help of the federal Local Food for Schools Cooperative Agreement Program. But in March, the U.S. Department of Agriculture canceled LFS, part of President Donald Trump's plans to gut the federal government. At the same time, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has accused schools of feeding children unhealthy food. The contradiction is not lost on Aguilar, leaving her and nutrition directors across the country scrambling for funds to continue farm-to-school programs.
Having fresh produce as part of our meal program is often, it could be the only exposure that students are getting to that. It exposes these students from, low-income populations to a variety of fruits and vegetables that they have never seen or got to experience or taste.
A reliance on federal food support stands in sharp contrast to the area's thriving food scene. But outside culinary circles, hunger haunts many homes. Brenda Encinas is the principal at John B. Wright Elementary School.
One of the first graders mentioned that to the teacher. There was no dinner, so I eat ice cream. So they eat a lot of chips, whatever they can find easy to grab, either because they didn't have the funds to buy groceries or because they did not have the family support of somebody making food at home.
In the Tucson district, 29.5% of families received government food benefits in the last 12 months. according to the National Center for Education Statistics, well above the national average. Many live in so-called food deserts, where access to affordable, fresh food is limited, and big grocery stores are far away. All this makes school lunches crucial. All students in the Tucson Unified School District benefit from a program which allows the country's highest poverty schools to serve free food without collecting individual applications.
Our school is what provides security to our students. School becomes their secure place where they have a meal in the morning, in the afternoon for lunch.
But Aguilar
US singer Chris Brown was on Wednesday granted bail by a London court after he was charged with serious assault. Now, Brown has been charged with inflicting grievous bodily harm in what prosecutors said was an unprovoked attack in a London nightclub in 2023. The 36-year-old has not yet been asked to enter a plea to the charge. He was not present at the Southwark Crown Court when the judge granted him bail.
All right, let's take you now to our person of interest. On International Day for Biodiversity, our point of inspiration isn't a veteran ecologist. It's someone who, when he was just a teenager, decided to track wild tigers, document India's forests, and write a best-selling book. He's older now, he's 22. Ishan Shanavas joins us here on the show this morning. And The Light of Wilder Things, take a look at it. This is his book. Ishan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so Ishan, we understand it's part memoir, it's part ecological journal, and the book actually captures your journey through India's vanishing wild spaces, right? And the growing bond with nature that you have. Before I go into it, can you tell us a little bit about what prompted you at such a young age to get interested and to talk about environment in this manner?
You know, I've been interested in the natural world for as long as I can remember. I think it started with watching Animal Planet and National Geographic on TV. And so my parents, seeing my interest, took me to a lot of spaces in the Western Ghats, just showing me forests and all the wildlife that we could find. And then finally, my parents moved me to a boarding school called Rishi Valley, which is next to a scrub jungle in the Eastern Ghats in Andhra Pradesh. And so there I did my schooling next to wildlife, where I would regularly toss snakes and frogs and scorpions out of my hostel. And so that's what built my interest.
Okay,
how cool.
Ishan, tell us, when you wrote this book, what did you feel was missing in the dialogue around wildlife conservation? Even just, passion for wildlife that made you go, okay, I need to put my voice out there. I need to put out a perspective that's different from the perspectives that already exist on India.
You know, I think I had noticed, being the geek that I am, I had read a lot of wildlife books, and I noticed that most of them were written by naturalists and ecologists who were very experienced, with 30 years of experience. And so while we need that, I think that really is unrelatable to, a common person.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe bringing a youth perspective and bringing someone who has just started in this space, bringing that voice into the field would sort of inject a breath of fresh air. And so that's what I wanted to do with the book.
With this book.
Yeah, which is what brings me to this entire thing about what is it that's missing in the environment as in conversation today? A lot of us, like we were discussing even before the program started, we care about the environment, we perhaps don't know what to do about it. So what is it that you are doing which is so unique? First, tell us that.
I mean, I try to use all my free time to go explore the natural world. All my holidays, even just my free time in a day, I use it to just go to a park if I'm in a city, or to go to, some place near the city that I am in to just explore and see what wildlife I can find. I think it starts with just stepping out your front door and looking around.
Oh, how lovely.
So hold on, which 22-year-old is not going inside pubs and parties but going to environment and forest? Ishan, this sounds like, are there more people like you? I want to know that.
You will be surprised to know that there are actually a lot more than one might imagine. I know folks who are as passionate as me, who would perhaps spend the entire day, sometimes up to 3 or 4 in the night, just looking for snakes. And I mean, they're my tribe really. And so there is a very strong culture of nature enthusiasts, and I'm proud to be part of it.
So happy to hear that.
Also, forgive me for making this about the generation you're in, but I do feel like a lot of Gen Z kids lack, in a great way, the irony that maybe my generation had, you know. They're genuinely just passionate about the world around them. We had a founder come on a few months earlier who had created a group that took young people out just to explore the wild.
Yeah.
So we are seeing young people like you do that, but that does bring us to our next question. Tell us about the young people that you see in cities like Bangalore, in Delhi. Of course, there are pockets that are interested, but there are also probably pockets of people that aren't interested in the nature and the biodiversity around them.
Perhaps a niche.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about what you think about getting more people into this. How is the conversation right now? Where is the conversation going wrong? How do we get more people to care?
You know, I think that there are a lot of people who aren't interested, but I look at it as people who aren't interested yet. You know, and I see that as an opportunity. For example, I think a lot of the work on social media that I share on Instagram, I honestly did not expect so many people to engage the way that they are doing right now. And I think it shows me that people have a greater capacity to get interested. And so, you know, I get a lot of messages with people saying, how can I explore the wild like you do? And I try to respond to as many as I can. And so I think there is something to be tapped in there. And I mean, I'm glad to hear of this founder. You know, we need more people like that to actually facilitate these interactions, because I know that the potential is there. That's what Instagram and so on has showed me.
Okay, so let's take a break from the crusader in you, but understand the explorer in you. I believe you've got some of your finds with us. Tell us a little bit about it, and I'm sure there is a story behind it.
Yeah, so I mean, if you come home, I have this small corner in my house which is just littered with, you know, pine cones and rocks and so on. So I got a few here that I thought I'd show you. This one, so you know, I think the Himalayas are filled with so many different species of pine, and these are a couple of cones that I've collected over the many years, and you know, each has a unique place in my heart. This one is from a particular place in Uttarakhand, in Kumaon. This is from Garhwal. This is from another place in Garhwal. And so I think just the beauty of this structure, I don't think any human could have created something like this. This is all entirely natural, and so I think this is just a testament to just the immense beauty out there in the natural world. And
for those who don't know, what exactly is a pine cone?
Oh, so a pine cone is the reproductive part of a pine tree, and so these have seeds, which then once it inflates and opens, spreads the seeds and thus allowing those trees to grow. And these are the different variations that you find, one of many.
Yeah.
I love that you asked that, because in my head I thought a seed. I didn't realize it actually contains many seeds that then sort of bloom.
It's sort of the fruit of the tree in some ways, which sort of germinates more. But this is of course a dried up version, and it's a great thing to keep. I have like lots of childhood memories, and we would pick it up from Rani Khet and places like that where there is immense forestation, and there would be painting competitions, etc. Which sort of brings me to, there was a time when we were very environmentally aware. Do you think we've taken a step back, maybe? I don't know. Is that the case, or do you see people your generation, not just the niche, but genuinely interested in doing more?
I mean, I think there's a general lack of wild spaces, perhaps. That, I mean, we have seen a decline over the last few decades, and so perhaps that's led to a bit of a disconnect. But I think, and this is something I see in my generation, I see a lot of people passionate and rather wanting to be passionate about something. And so that's where I'm going to take you back to the thing of, these people are prime audience to get them interested into the natural world. And so I think, yes, they might not be interested yet, but they are looking for something, and it's up to us to now get the message out.
Can I ask you a question as just a young person who thinks a lot? A lot of, I think, young women would love to be doing this, but a lot of spaces aren't as safe. I know that personally, I've been told, you know, don't go into the forest, particularly in places like Kumaon, Garhwal, where the people are very safe. Still, there's this thing of, okay, but don't go into the forests alone. So I do want to ask, and that's around the country, you know, this fear of, if you're a girl, don't go in alone. So what are the things you've seen different groups do to make the spaces, whether it is forests, whether it is parks with thick density, safe for young women travelers your age?
Yeah, you know, I think this is a concern. I have talked to a lot of, for instance, I had volunteered under a researcher and who was studying these snakes in Karnataka, and she was telling me a lot about how, you know, women face certain challenges that men are just blind to. You know, you don't see all these challenges. The fact of just going from a metro to these distant locations is a challenge with so many sort of hurdles to navigate which a man wouldn't need to. And so I think what organizations and volunteer groups are doing is that like trying to get only women groups so that they would feel safe, and perhaps even in the lodging having them stay in a certain area so that they would feel safe. So there are little
or perhaps have a tribe, travel as a group, and perhaps that will be. But talking about spaces, you know, the challenge that I think anybody staying in a concrete jungle like us faces is that we can't just backpack and go on a trek like you do and just go and explore the wild. So for a regular everyday audience watching right now who's interested in the wild but perhaps doesn't know how to, are there spaces that one can explore?
You know, I am happy to tell you that there are still some pockets of, you know, wild spaces here, even in our cities. So, for example, in Delhi NCR, you have places like Okla Bird Sanctuary, you have Sundar Nursery, you even have my personal favorite, Lodi Gardens. And so I've spent so much time.
You've not mentioned Aravali Biodiversity.
Yes, Aravali.
I go running there, which is why I'm like, don't forget the deers and the peacocks.
Is a fabulous place. I met Vijay, who had helped restore the place. It's really a beacon of hope, if you will. I will point out Lodi Gardens because that's my personal favorite. I've spent so much time just sitting there and observing. Like, there are a lot of animals over there that you might not expect to find, but they are over there. For example, I remember walking once and I heard these jungle babblers, which is this type of bird, going crazy. They're just chittering, chattering, and I was wondering what happened. And so when I went there, I just saw a mongoose slip past the road, and that made my day that day. And so there are mongooses, there are hornbills. There's a lot to find in these wild spaces.
Wow, who would have thought?
What I'm waiting for is I want to know India's David Attenborough. When are we going to see that next? Who are the people who you think are already, sort of beacons in this movement right now? Young people, I want to know, like you, apart from yourself, who you think are making change and deserve the shout out today?
Oh, I mean, there are so many. I mean, there are some who don't even have a media presence. Actually, I would rather shout out them because those are the folks who are really doing the on-ground work, the daily ground work. For example, I will perhaps use this to shout out forest guards. They don't have a social media. They perhaps have a button phone at max, but these are the people who are really doing the on-ground work of saving our wild spaces. Yes. Other than that, then there are many young people like me. I think Aman Sharma, who's a friend of mine, he's someone who has a good social media presence, who is doing a lot of wildlife activism, and there are many others.
Before we go, are there some basic takeaways, some do's and don'ts when you immerse yourself in nature? Are there things, because we every now and then we see videos of people spotting a tiger but doing it so wrong, screaming and or spotting like a baby trapped but not knowing what to do about it, like the villagers come together and perhaps not treating the animal right,
or just touching the animal, I believe sometimes.
Yeah, and even if you're say underwater, then touching the flora and fauna there. So just, are there some do's and don'ts, some basic principles that one must follow?
I think one thing would be to just go and respect the sanctity of the place. And you're not there to enjoy, you're there to see and respect it. So for example, you said underwater, right? A lot of creatures have like a mucus lining, which if you touch, it removes and irritates the skin. So manta rays, for example, are these big, large fish. And so a lot of divers tend to touch these creatures, but that removes the mucus and their skin gets irritated, things like that. So I think that's one thing, to just respect that you are in their space and therefore you should abide by their rules. I think the second thing would be to, first of all, leave the place just as you found it,
That's very important.
That's very important.
Very important.
Like, I mean, we are seeing a lot of trekking trails in the Himalayas, but even across the country, now just brim up with garbage because folks go there and they throw their Lays or their Coca-Cola. So that's one thing. Respect it and leave it as it is. Or rather, do one better. Pick up the trash that you find, because these places don't have a municipality to take the trash back. So it'll just stay there for years. So if you take it back, then you'll be doing your bit for the natural world, and you'll have my respect.
What a beautiful.
I think those are very good tips. Yeah.
Right. On the day that we want to speak about the conservation of the environment, I want to ask you one last question. For every young Indian watching today, there are quite a few, the families that are watching today, your message on World Conservation Day, what is it?
My message is this: there are still wild spaces out there to be preserved. All right, there are still so many spaces. Don't lose hope. Go out there, do your bit, and trust me, the world will respect you for it.
All right. On that note, Ishan, thank you so much for your time, and we hope this has left you inspired on this day as well.
All right, with that, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching The Breakfast Club. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for your time.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for having me, Anand.
So how do we deal with this? Now, this is the input coming through. The Kartarpur Sahib corridor is a matter of religious pilgrimage. We can't go back and alter history, because had that line been just 1.5 kilometers on the other side, we wouldn't have had this problem also. But now we are faced with this issue. And in the recent spurt of the number of people who are now being unearthed as part of the spy ring cultivated by the ISI, this becomes concerning.
Anand, yeah, it's a very good point, but I would like to add that this corridor was opened on 9th of November 2019. But the spy rings were working before that also.
Ji.
Secondly, you will find that since having knowledge of law and order, intelligence, and having worked in various fields of the state police as an IPS officer, I know that such places are for mutual exchange of intelligence. It is not that it is always a negative point for us. Our intelligence agencies, whether it is RAW, IB, state counterintelligence agencies, it's like a place. For example, if you look at Red Cross, or you will find that all these places are good breeding grounds, but it can be beneficial both ways. So I don't want to go into those details.
Right.
But just imagine that since November 2019, around 4,14,435 people have visited this Gurdwara Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib. Out of that, maybe 10, 20, you will find that we can say that, not that I only know about 2 people which have been identified, including Jyoti Mehrotra and one from Haryana and maybe one from Punjab. The percentage of such people is very low. I also want to add one more thing, that Jyoti Mehrotra only once went to Kartarpur Sahib, but twice she went to Pakistan via Atari border.
Yeah.
So this exchange of visitors is okay, but at the same time, I don't want to deny that whether it is on this side or that side of the border, we need to be very alert on these issues. And now in present day world, when we have like social media platforms, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, it is very easy for our intelligence agencies also to monitor as to what the other person is doing. And I feel that it is like, for example, if there is 40,000 people sitting in one stadium,
right,
and they all have mobile phones, for intelligence agencies of ours, as we are very technically advanced, no doubt about that,
right,
and I have seen how we work, it's not difficult for us to identify who are the black sheeps or who are working for the foreign thing.
Network 18 decimates Times Internet with over 6 times more unique users on social media. Network 18, the undisputed leader of news networks, way ahead of the times. Brought to you by This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for your time.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you for having me, Anand.
So how do we deal with this? Now, this is the input coming through. The Kartarpur Sahib corridor is a matter of religious pilgrimage. We can't go back and alter history, because had that line been just 1.5 kilometers on the other side, we wouldn't have had this problem also. But now we are faced with this issue. And in the recent spurt of the number of people who are now being unearthed as part of the spy ring cultivated by the ISI, this becomes concerning.
Anand, yeah, it's a very good point, but I would like to add that this corridor was opened on 9th of November 2019. But the spy rings were working before that also.
Ji.
Secondly, you will find that since having knowledge of law and order, intelligence, and having worked in various fields of the state police as an IPS officer, I know that such places are for mutual exchange of intelligence. It is not that it is always a negative point for us. Our intelligence agencies, whether it is RAW, IB, state counterintelligence agencies, it's like a place. For example, if you look at Red Cross, or you will find that all these places are good breeding grounds, but it can be beneficial both ways. So I don't want to go into those details.
Right.
But just imagine that since November 2019, around 4,14,435 people have visited this Gurdwara Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib. Out of that, maybe 10, 20, you will find that we can say that, not that I only know about 2 people which have been identified, including Jyoti Mehrotra and one from Haryana and maybe one from Punjab. The percentage of such people is very low. I also want to add one more thing, that Jyoti Mehrotra only once went to Kartarpur Sahib, but twice she went to Pakistan via Atari border.
Yeah.
So this exchange of visitors is okay, but at the same time, I don't want to deny that whether it is on this side or that side of the border, we need to be very alert on these issues. And now in present day world, when we have like social media platforms, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to CNN News 18. I'm Shen Elizabeth Matthew. Let's begin this bulletin with top news this hour. Now, it has been 30 days since the Pahalgam terror attack, and India continues its strong response both militarily and diplomatically. Now, the deadly assault which shook the nation, prompting an unwavering crackdown on terror networks and the launch of Operation Sindoor to retaliate against those responsible. From intensified security measures in Jammu and Kashmir to global outreach, India's stand has been firm. Zero tolerance for terrorism. Now, India's retaliatory response have exposed the deep-rooted terror links with diplomatic efforts and now in full swing as India pushes its case to the United Nations and key global powers. Now, meanwhile, security forces have eliminated several terror operatives with counter-insurgency operations continuing in full force. And as India stands united, the world watches. Can this response reshape how nation tackles cross-border terrorism? And the fight is over, far from over. All right, joining me on this broadcast right now is Ishan Vani, who is in fact reporting from Pahalgam at this point. Ishan, it's been 30 days since the unfortunate Pahalgam attack took place, the drastic one that took place on April 22nd. Since then, what are you seeing the difference as far as the situation on ground is concerned? Is the normalcy returning in Pahalgam specifically? Are the tourists coming now compared to what it was the situation after the attack?
Shireen, there has been a low number of tourists have been coming. post-Pahalgam attack, there were a handful of tourists who were coming because their trips were planned. But after India and Pakistan, there was a clash that took place. The tourist numbers declined completely, and most of the shops and streets are deserted. Even if you see behind me, there is less traffic that is plying on the street. And generally in these months, because of the summer picking up, a lot of tourists would make Pahalgam their home for a while. Even locals would visit Pahalgam very frequently because it's a place which is surrounded by snow-capped mountains, and generally it will become cold during the night time. So people will come here as an escape from the heat, as rest of the India would try to travel towards Kashmir. But that hasn't happened. One, because there's a large fear among tourists still that the sort of attack that we saw, where 25 tourists lost their life, 24 tourists actually, and one local from Anantnag lost his life. And so ever since then, the confidence-building measure is something which is being attempted by the government. But a very less movement on the ground, though the tourism players are assuring the tourists that they are very safe in Kashmir and they don't need to worry about it, but it will take a while for them to bridge that particular gap. Because the flights were cancelled, the airports were shut down, that resulted in a lot of cancellation. Even if you look today, if we compare the data that we have accessed, the flights on the 20th of April, the number of arrivals and departures were around 19,000. Just yesterday, on 20th, day before yesterday, we checked the data again with the Srinagar airport, and the arrival and departure was almost 5,000, which is around 73% dip in the number of people arriving to Kashmir and going out of Kashmir. That tells you the situation that has resulted in a drastic change, particularly for the tourism sector. Though the priority for the government right now is to ensure the safety and security of the civilians and also the Amarnath Yatra, which is going through the same route as we are reporting right now. Particularly Anantnag, Pahalgam is a crucial link, and it has come under attack in the past, particularly the Amarnath pilgrims. So that is very crucial and critical for the security forces, and that's why the meetings have taken place. But there are also operations that are taking place in the forest behind me. You can see that these are the forest range where the massive operations are underway, where the Indian Army, J&K police is relentlessly trying to chase them down, to hunt them down, those who are responsible for carrying out attack on the civilians in Kashmir. But a lot has changed in the month in terms of security paradigm. The security forces have held number of meetings. The overall meetings have also been held between the security agencies, particularly the intelligence agencies, the security agencies which include the Indian Army, the intelligence agencies, the J&K police and other paramilitary forces, who are trying to regroup and reassess, because the thrust from the centre is that there needs to be a renewed push, particularly in the generation of intelligence input, and that's where you saw a coordinated effort by the security forces led to the elimination of 6 local militants, 3 in Shopian and 3 in Tral. But there are intensified mechanisms that the forces have drawn, particularly not only towards those who are directly responsible for carrying out attack and wielding guns, but also against those who are orchestrating, planning or executing or providing logistical support, who are called in overground workers. So they are also being identified and pushed behind the bars, and multiple of them have been slapped with the Public Safety Act, where minimum punishment is at least 2 years. So that is also happening. So there are multiple and simultaneous things which are unfolding in Kashmir, and definitely this is a new benchmark that the security forces are trying to set, so that there is no repeat of these incidents. Though there was a call and acceptance from the government that there was a little failure on part of the security forces, but apart from this, there has been concrete action that the government is trying to take, and the administration in J&K is trying to take, to ensure the safety and security not only of those who are visiting Kashmir, but also of those locals who could be potentially an attempt could be made to target locals, particularly the political party leaders or those who have protested against Pahalgam incident. So that has also been reviewed. While the security remains a top priority, but also the government is trying to ensure that they send a right message to those who are trying to visit Kashmir, because tourism forms a lot of economy of Kashmir and contributes significantly to the GDP of Jammu and Kashmir. So that is also in focus of the government, while also there are many shifts which are taking place, particularly towards the borders. We saw massive clashes taking place where Pakistan opened unprovoked fire towards the line of control in the last several days, and which resulted in a lot of people being displaced, their houses being completely destroyed. So this all has taken place, but there's a lot which has changed within a month, and security forces are trying to focus on the Amarnath Yatra as well as the security of those who could possibly be an attempt to target them.
Ishan, you rightly pointed out that a lot has happened in this last 30 days. We have seen ever since the 22nd Pahalgam attack, we have been seeing that there was a retaliatory attack from Indian side, Operation Sindoor. Diplomatically as well as militarily, the methods and the process was in fact done by India. How is the locals reacting on this as far as Operation Sindoor is concerned? Is there still fear among them as far as the attacks are concerned?
Well, this was something new that then they have never seen, at least of my generation, which never saw a drone warfare taking place above their heads. And it was shocking for most of them that a lot of drones were actually taken down from Srinagar, and attempts were made to harm the India's security apparatus, particularly the airports, the defense establishments. And that is something which was new. Though those who have grown up in the shadow of seeing violence in Kashmir, they had grown up seeing a different kind of violence. But this was very different. This was scary for people because you never know where the drone is going to be brought down, whether any debris would harm you. And that's why there were continuous messaging from the administration asking people to stay indoor and turn off their lights so that there is no harm to the civilian population. Apart from this, the sort of clashes that took place on the border also resulted in a lot of questioning of those who are living on the line of control. Many of them are now demanding that they should be permanently taken to some other place, and they don't want to live near the line of control or the line of fire because ceasefire is something, whenever it is broken, they are the ones who face the brunt and lose their lives. At least 18 plus civilians lost their lives in the ceasefire violation, both in Rajouri, Poonch. Once a woman lost her life in Uri. A lot of people got displaced. Numbers would be more than 50,000 which were temporarily removed out of their houses just to keep them out of harm's way. But this was something which was unprecedented. India launching both diplomatic assault on Pakistan and also stopping the water and also keeping Indus Water Treaty in abeyance. At the same time, rockets being launched at those military targets from where India was targeted, particularly the Indian security forces were attempted that there will be a target on them. But recall the time that because it started from the day when Pahalgam attack took place and India took a retaliatory action against the Pakistan handlers.
Absolutely. There was a retaliatory attack as far as Operation Sindoor is concerned. Now, I request you, Ishan, to please stay with us. Now, we are talking about how the kin of Pahalgam victims react to everything that unfolded after the fateful 22nd April attack. Take a look.
ऐसे नहीं, ये बताइए, आज शुभम को गए हुए पूरा 1 महीना हुआ, क्या लगता है कि आप लोग का दर्द कम हुआ है या उसी तरह?
हमने आज घर पे शांति पाठ किया था और उसकी आत्मा की शांति के लिए हवन किया था। रोज़ हम यही भगवान से मनाते भी हैं कि जहाँ पे भी हो उसकी आत्मा को शांति रहे, ठीक हो, खुश हो। आज बस हमने यही किया, उसको बहुत ही याद कर रहे थे सब लोग। इस घटना को कोई भूल नहीं सकता। मुझे लगता है ये पूरा देश इस घटना को पूरी तरीके से याद रखेगा। हर जगह यही बात होगी कि इस पहलगाम हमले को 22 अप्रैल को 1 महीना हो चुका है। इसके अलावा हम सरकार से एक ही बात शुरुआत से कर रहे हैं कि मैं पहले दिन से बोल रही हूँ कि उसको शहीद का दर्जा दिया जाए। आज भी मुझे उम्मीद है कि सरकार इस पर कुछ तो सोच रही होगी, कुछ तो करेगी। उम्मीद पूरी है कि शुभम को शहीद का दर्जा मिलेगा।
क्या हुआ था शुरुआत से लेकर?
हम 17 अप्रैल को पहुँचे थे और हम पूरी फैमिली के 11 लोग थे, हम सब गए थे। 2:10 या 2:15 में हम पहुँचे थे और ये घटना 2:25 पे हुई है। 2:25 पे वो आए, उन्होंने पूछा हिंदू है या मुसलमान। एक बंदा था पीछे से ही आया था। हम समझ ही नहीं पाए क्या है, क्योंकि शुरुआत हम नहीं समझ पाओगे। हमने पूछा क्या हुआ भैया, फिर दोबारा बोला हिंदू है मुसलमान, मुसलमान है तो कलमा पढ़। शुभम ने प्राउडली बोला हिंदू हैं और उसका सेंटेंस ख़त्म भी नहीं हुआ था कि उसको मार दिया। वहाँ के जितने लोग मारे गए हैं उन सब ने बोला होगा बहुत प्राउडली कि हम हिंदू हैं और हम अपने ही देश में हिंदू होने की वजह से हम मार दिए गए हैं।
जैसे कि आपको भी पता है 1 महीना होने को आया है, तो मेरे भाई की जो 22 अप्रैल को जो हादसा हुआ था उसमें मेरे भाई की जो